Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Sorry I have been MIA the past couple of days. I was in the city for a long weekend, went to a couple Cubbies games, and you guys will be definitely getting a vlog of that experience soon. It is August 7th. The NFL season is officially 1 month away, and because of that, I am going to promise myself that I'm going to upload every single day up until the start of the NFL season. Our goal is to reach 500 subscribers before Chiefs play the Lions on Thursday night, and I would really appreciate if you can help me get there by hitting that subscribe button. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about NFL training camp. Training camp has been going on for a couple of weeks now, and every single year, training camp provides a good opportunity for us to see the new draft picks, the new free agent signings, the trades, and because we don't have actual football yet, the stories and the news from training camp is sometimes really all we have to live on for a while. So in this video, I'm going to go through every single team's biggest note throughout training camp and give my thoughts on it. We're going to go by division, so we're going to start with the NFC North. And my biggest note for the Chicago Bears so far is that the Justin Fields to DJ Moore connection is as advertised. Making the big trade for DJ Moore and trading away the first overall pick means they have high expectations for DJ Moore. And Justin Fields was known, especially at Ohio State, for how well he was as a deep ball passer. From all the reports that I've read, the connection between Justin Fields and DJ Moore down the field has been electric. They have become besties, which is awesome. Love it when my QB and wide receiver one are besties. And they seem like they've really managed to have great chemistry with each other early on in the season. And I hope for the Bears' sake that that only continues going into the season. Next, for the Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love looks pretty good so far. He has made some highlight-worthy plays. I don't know if you saw that play just yesterday or 2 days ago. He was rolling out to his left, kind of did a little flick of his wrist and got the guy going in. He has looked pretty good from all reports. Now, I say this again, it's training camp. A lot of the research I'm doing are from the local beat writers or the people that cover the specific team for a living, so they could be a little biased. However, it's said that Jordan Love looks pretty good. He looks comfortable. He looks confident. Also, he's made a great connection with Luke Musgrave so far, the new tight end that they got. So perhaps the Packers will be a little bit better off than I initially thought if Jordan Love is as good as they're saying. My note for the Vikings is that Brian Flores is completely changing the defense. Brian Flores coming in, being the defensive coordinator, replacing Ed Donatel. Ed Donatel did a terrible job last year. So glad he never worked for the Seahawks. Replacing Ed Donatel is Brian Flores, who has obviously had a proven track record with the Miami Dolphins. He recently was an assistant coach with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he's coming in to be their defensive coordinator. And from what I've been reading, the defense looks way different. They've been running lots of exotic looks. They've been doing all sorts of different stuff. And my question is, I don't know if they have the talent to run what he wants to run, but I do know that their defense is going to be it's going to be much better disguised, and it's going to be more exotic. And if there's one thing I love, it's exotic. Finishing off the North with the Detroit Lions, my note for them is that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a weapon. When the Lions took Jahmyr Gibbs with a top 12 pick in the NFL draft, I kind of knew that they had special plans for him because he was such a dynamic threat at Alabama. But everything I've been seeing in training camp only amplifies that to 11. The reports are saying that Jahmyr Gibbs has not only been dynamite running the ball, but in certain formations, they're lining him up as a slot receiver. They're throwing him screens, slants, out routes, everything like that. Ben Johnson is just absolutely cooking with him all over the field. And I think he's going to be a massive, massive weapon for the Lions this year. Moving on to the NFC West and my Seattle Seahawks, my note is that the defense has looked a lot better. Last year, the Seahawks secondary was pretty good, but their run defense was just absolutely atrocious. The Seahawks made some key additions in that front seven, though. They brought back Bobby Wagner. They signed Devin Bush to a free agent deal. They notably signed defensive lineman Draymond Jones. And for all intents and purposes so far, all of the beat reporters, everything, they had a scrimmage game. They've all been saying that the run defense looks a lot better, which is a great thing to hear. That was definitely their kryptonite last season. So it's really encouraging for me as a Seahawks fan to see that their run defense has improved to pair along with a very, very talented secondary. Next for the 49ers, the biggest note about their training camp has been the quarterback battle. Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, they have all kind of gone back and forth to see who is going to start at quarterback. The betting favorite is obviously going to be Brock Purdy, but Trey Lance and Sam Darnold have made some good plays. They've also made some bad plays. Listen, the thing about these guys is I've been following Grant Cohen, and that alone tells you that I'm desperate for more information. But Grant Cohen has been saying that basically all three of these guys have had days where they look good, and all three of these guys have days where they look like dog shit. So it really just depends on the day. I feel like the 49ers don't have a solid answer at starting quarterback just yet, but I do think that Brock Purdy will be the week 1 starter. My note for the Rams is that Stetson Bennett could possibly see a good amount of playing time this year. All of the reports saying that Stetson Bennett has looked really, really good. All of the reports have been saying that Stetson Bennett looks really, really good going into the Rams offense. And unfortunately, again, Matthew Stafford has been kind of injury prone the last couple of seasons. It is not out of the realm of possibility that Stetson Bennett is able to come in, start a few games for the Rams this season. You know, I think they're kind of in a weird transitional period, and they might want to see what they have in Stetson Bennett. Or, like I said, if Matthew Stafford goes down, I think Stetson Bennett has cemented himself as the backup quarterback in Los Angeles. Now for the Arizona Cardinals, and I shit you not, the only thing I wrote down was LOL. The Cardinals suck. They're going to be bad. The reports I've been reading have not been good. There was that clip of Colt McCoy that went viral, hitting the dude in the back of the head. They look like shit. They're probably going to be shit, unfortunately, until Kyler gets back. And Caleb Williams, man. I mean, that's the name to look out for. Marvin Harrison, too, but Cardinals are going to be bad this year. Moving on to the NFC East, my note for the Philadelphia Eagles, unfortunately, is that Jalen Carter is who we thought he was. He has been dominant. That defensive line has been dominant. The Eagles seem to be running on all cylinders right now. It's going to be very hard for any team in the NFC to get past the Eagles, and I think that they're going to be just as good or maybe even better than they were last. The Dallas Cowboys, the big news out of training camp for them is Dak Prescott. A couple of things to note here. Seems like he's throwing picks like it's just going out of style, and people have been quick on Twitter to either defend or slander him. Here's what I'll say. It's training camp, right? If you want him to throw picks and you want him to get it out of his system, you ideally want to do it now. But for a guy who has been in the Dallas Cowboys organization for as many years as he has, additionally, let's not forget that he is adapting to a new offensive coordinator. So some of those picks, I think, are just a little bit of getting to know the system, getting to know everything like that. Now, I sound like a Dak defender here, so I'm going to go with the opposite side. I'm going to slander him. For a guy who's been in the league since 2016, some of these mistakes that he's been making are just awful. I saw him underthrow a go route inside, which is just every safety's biggest dream. So hopefully Dak can turn it around. Actually, hopefully not. I kind of hope he does throw like 30, 40 picks this year. That would be pretty sweet. But again, and then we'd have to hear, Cowboys fans bitching all over Twitter. My note for the Giants is that Jalen Hyatt is apparently him. He has been awesome in training camp so far. He's making a good connection with Daniel Jones. We all know that he was super, super duper fast, but apparently he's impressed with his route running. He's impressed with his separation skills, his hands, everything like that. He could legitimately be the weapon that the Giants have been waiting for many years at wide receiver, ever since Odell left, I would argue. My note for the Washington Commanders is Sam Howell. Sam Howell seems to be the definite quarterback one in Washington, and he's looked pretty good. I've seen some deep throws to Terry McLaurin and everything like that. He's looked pretty good so far. I think there is obviously going to be some adapting because he's never been a starting quarterback before, and he's got a new offensive coordinator in Eric Bieniemy. But I do think he's looked pretty good so far, and I'm interested to see how good that Washington offense is going to be with those elite 3 receivers that they have over there. My note for the Carolina Panthers is that Bryce Young is already quarterback 1 in Carolina. He has been named the starting quarterback by Frank Reich, and from all intents and purposes, he has very much held his own in training camp so far. Obviously, there's going to be the rookie quarterback struggles, both in training camp and in the regular season, but from every report that I've read, fans and media alike are very impressed with Bryce Young. They're glad that they took him first overall as of this point, and they think that he's holding his own so far. And my note for the Atlanta Falcons is anybody surprised? Bijan Robinson looks like a fucking beast. He went viral a few times for the one-on-one drills where he was running some routes. I will say I do normally have a problem with double moves and one-on-ones. I think that's pretty cheap. It's pretty much impossible for a defender to cover a receiver one-on-one on a double move, especially when he's going against a linebacker. But I digress. He does have really, really good movement skills. He looks smooth at the point of the catch. Obviously, his agility, his speed were all things that we knew coming out of college he would be great at. And Bijan Robinson looks like he's going to be an absolute fantasy stud this year. Really nothing that I'm saying is controversial in those last 30 seconds, but it is noteworthy that he does look as he was advertised, and he has been very, very good so far for Falcons training camp. My note for the New Orleans Saints is that their wide receiver core looks pretty damn good. Chris Olave has looked good. Michael Thomas is obviously coming back. They've had a couple of under-the-radar guys really step up. And the reason I mention their wide receiver core especially is because I think they're going to be a little more pass-heavy when Alvin Kamara is not in the starting lineup for the first 3 games of the regular season. He got suspended a few days ago. So I think they're going to be a little bit more pass-heavy team. They're going to rely on those wide receivers a little bit more. And I think so far that they're proving that they are worth being the focal point of the offense. My note for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is that this is probably the saddest quarterback competition I've ever seen between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. Listen, I think Baker Mayfield will win it, but at the same time, if you're the Buccaneers, what is the downside to starting Kyle Trask? He's a former second-round pick. You probably want to see what you have in him. Baker Mayfield, you really know what you're getting, and either way, you're going to be terrible. I would almost rather be a little bit worse so that you probably get a top 3 or 4 pick in the draft. We have Colin Cowherd this week saying that if Baker doesn't win the job, he should retire from the NFL, which low-key I kind of agree with. It's just a sad situation in Tampa going from the GOAT to Baker versus Kyle Trask. It's just a sad situation. They don't look particularly good either. You know, this isn't like a Geno Smith situation where it was sad, you know, for everybody, but he was like low-key balling, and obviously when the season got on, he was doing really well. This is just sad, and I feel bad for Bucs fans. Moving on to the AFC, specifically the AFC North, we have the Browns, and apparently Deshaun Watson is struggling. Yeah, I was reading practice reports the other day. He was overthrowing Amari Cooper. He was overthrowing Cedric Tillman. He was underthrowing da-da-da. I mean, he just looks not great, and obviously he's not going to start over him, but DTR looked pretty damn good in the Hall of Fame game, which is the only, public access, I guess, we've had to football for the last, since February. Couldn't do the math in my head, sorry. But Deshaun Watson is apparently struggling, and a large part of this Cleveland Browns team, actually, the whole team really relies on Deshaun Watson bouncing back and being the version of himself that he was with the Houston Texans. And if he's not able to do that, he's going to take the whole team down with him. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how good he is and if he's able to rebound. But as of right now, I'm reading that he's struggling. Cincinnati Bengals, this whole team hinges on Joe Burrow. He's got that calf strain that's going to keep him out for a few weeks. Jamar Chase even mentioned the fact that he couldn't be back till week 5 or 6, which I don't necessarily see, but I think that the team is very Joe Burrow dependent. We're forgetting how bad the Bengals were before they got Joe Burrow in the draft, mind you. But they are very Joe Burrow dependent. They are not going to be competitive without him. And if he does have to miss a few regular season games, that is not going to bode well for the Bengals' playoff chance. For the Ravens, they do not have the new offense down yet. There has been a lot of reports of the defense dominating in training camp. Lamar Jackson's throwing picks left and right. And I do think that there is a certain acclimation period that you have to have with a new offense, radically changing the way that they're going to play football. Much different from what Greg Roman was going to do. And I think the Ravens, obviously, it's practice for a reason, right? You got to get it down. You got to get the reads down, everything like that. But as of right now, the defense has been dominating. Lamar Jackson has been struggling in the new offense. And they do have a little bit of time to get it down pat. But as of right now, it is not looking good, unfortunately. My note for the Pittsburgh Steelers is that George Pickens is a contested catch monster. I still worry a little bit about his separation ability, but Kenny Pickett has just been saying, fuck it, George Pickens down there somewhere, throwing it up, and George Pickens is one-handed catching, falling over Joey Porter, doing all that type of stuff. Matchup nightmare for many DBs trying to cover him because they could really put themselves in good position and have, good everything like that and good technique. And George Pickens is just going to moss him, right? So I think George Pickens, he's going to take a big leap this year. Again, I do worry about his separation ability, but in terms of point of the catch, I mean, there might be not a lot of people better in the league already. Speaking of receivers, my notes for the Jacksonville Jaguars is that Calvin Ridley is ready to dominate. Calvin Ridley traded over last year from the Falcons, obviously was serving his gambling suspension, which would be the first of many, unfortunately, in NFL. But Calvin Ridley has not only looked amazing, he's developed a connection with Trevor Lawrence, but the last time he played receiver for a full season, he was amazing. He was a top 5, 6-ish receiver in the NFL. Adding to that already stacked Jaguars offense, I think is going to work wonders for him. And I think he's poised for a really, really big season in Duval. My note for the Colts is obviously about their first-round quarterback, Anthony Richardson. Apparently, he has made some big plays, but has struggled, obviously, right? He's taken a good amount of the first team reps away from Gardner Minshew, which strengthens my conspiracy theory that he might start week one. I say, fuck it, why not? Like, you might as well start him. I don't really see a downside to playing AR 15 more than he would be behind Gardner Minshew for a few weeks. But he's used his legs. Apparently, he's had a good connection with Alec Pierce in that wide receiver room, so we will have to see. But Anthony Richardson has obviously been the big story out of Colts training camp. The big story out of Texans training camp has been the connection of C.J. Stroud and Nico Hollins, two young guys, two hopefully cornerstones of the Texans offense for years to come. The Texans have a lot of young wide receivers. They got Tank Dell, John Mechie, Nico Collins. One of those guys I think has to separate themselves from the pack as being C.J. Stroud's number one target. And as of this point, I believe that is Nico Collins. He's had a good training camp. The reports have been really well so far. And I think if he can make a connection with C.J. Stroud, then he could have a pretty good year for the Houston Texans. My note for the Tennessee Titans is that Malik Willis might be their most improved player. He's apparently looked really, really good, leaps and bounds better than he was last season, and he's made some good throws in training camp. Now, the Titans' weapons leave much to be desired, unfortunately, but Malik Willis has apparently looked really good. He's probably the best athlete in their quarterback room, and I think that he probably is going to get some starts this year. I know he looked really bad last year against the Chiefs. Understandable, right? But with Ryan Tannehill aging and with Will Levis being a question mark, I think Malik Willis might get some starts this season. My note for the Jets is that Aaron Rodgers has looked a little rusty. He's been throwing some picks. He's been, a little clumsy. But a lot of that, again, could just be a new offensive coordinator, But if we remember last season, Aaron Rodgers didn't look like Aaron Rodgers. So is this going to be a situation where Aaron Rodgers fell off a cliff, or is he just throwing picks in training camp? And it's just not a big deal? People always overreact to training camp picks. Now, they don't always mean something, but they could, right? So it's worth keeping an eye on as the season progresses. I know for the Dolphins is that Tua is stepping up as a leader. There was that video that went viral a couple of days ago of Tua kind of rallying the troops in the Dolphins facility, trying to get them to clean up their act a little bit. It was a little bit of a sloppy training camp performance. And I think if Tua can ascend himself to be a legitimate leader of that Dolphins team, that they will be very, very good and they will score a lot of points. My note for the Patriots is stink, stank, and stunk. You might think I'm quoting the Grinch, but unfortunately, I'm quoting a Patriots beat reporter. That was the way that he described the Patriots wide receiver core of Juju Smith-Schuster, Devontae Parker, and a bunch of other scrubs. Apparently, they look like shit, and apparently they have massive holes at wide receiver. They probably should have signed DeAndre Hopkins, to be honest with you. Very, very surprised they didn't. And, their receiving core just does not look good at all. So if you have Ramondre Stevenson in fantasy, good on you. But Patriots doesn't look like Mac Jones' life is going to be any easier. For the Bills, Dalton Kincaid has looked really good, and he's been a vocal point of the offense. He's been able to stretch the defense vertically, and he's already had a good connection with Josh Allen, is what I've been hearing so far. For the Chiefs, breakout star of camp this year has been Justin Ross. He's apparently looked very, very good. He has that clip, where he's running that curl route, and he kind of wipes his hands off his gloves before he's able to catch the pass. Listen, there is no certifiable wide receiver one in Kansas City. That is a golden opportunity for him to take. As of this point, it looks like he's taken it, and as of this point, it looks like he's going to run with it. So, good on him. For the Raiders, they are sorely missing the presence of Josh Jacobs. Devontae Adams made a comment about it the other day, but he's holding out. He wants a new contract. The Raiders aren't going to give him a new contract as of this point. And it is going to be interesting to see how far along during the season Josh Jacobs sits himself out, how far he's willing to go to get the contract that he thinks he deserves. Ending it off with the Chargers and the Broncos. The Chargers, Quentin Johnston apparently has looked like a freak of nature. That's what all Chargers fans are saying, all 12 of them. And, Quentin Johnston is one of the highest ceiling wide receivers, I would say, in this draft. I would argue that he has the best athletic profile, and if the Chargers are able to get the most out of him, that is going to be a home run draft pick. And then for the Broncos, Sean Payton is loud. He's made some comments, and he's stirred the pot a little bit, and that's probably not a good thing to put more of a target on the Broncos' back after the season they had last year. But you know what? It is what it is, man. So that is kind of my one headline for every team during NFL training camp video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Please don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you guys in tomorrow's video.